Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Iblis Manifestations Podcast. This channel features lengthy off-limits conversations with various different artists and entrepreneurs, predominantly from the underground metal scene. We take deep dives into the topics of life, music, spirituality, and take insight from a variety of thought-provoking perspectives from personalities who you don't often hear from in a mainstream settings. I am your host, Cheyenne, and I was originally born and raised in Iran and currently reside in the UK. I am the frontman and founding member of the black death metal band TRIVAX, who have been active since 2009. The band originally started in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where such type of music is banned as well as a punishable offense. You can check the band's pages for any updates on tour dates as well as new music. I am also a personal trainer and an online fitness coach who specializes in people achieving the best versions of themselves physically and mentally. Having been someone who was once extremely out of shape and overweight, I find it to be my duty to be able to pass on the information and knowledge which I've gained to help others achieve the same transformation. The Iblis Manifestations Podcast also features a variety of solo episodes where I discuss personal experiences and anecdotes in a very candid fashion, covering everything from mental health, spirituality, philosophy, and even paranormal experiences. This is the Iblis Manifestations Podcast. To support it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and visit the link in the descriptions.
It's great talking to you, Cheyenne, really. And best of luck to your endeavors for this podcast. I think it's a great initiative.
You're my favorite person to talk to for interviews and stuff. So I love what you're espousing out here. I love the knowledge and the perspectives that you're curating through this, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
As I told you, it was one of the most interesting interviews I've ever had, because we talk a lot more things than just music, and I really appreciated that.
I respect you deeply, and it's an honor to be here.
And friends, remember as always, better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. Enjoy the podcast.
It's a nice little notification that comes up to the top, isn't it?
I know it is, yeah. I always tell the guests, especially the ones who haven't done Zoom before, I'm always saying to them, like, yeah, I'm going to give you 1 second to click away that fucking thing. And then, yeah. It's funny because it sounds like the quick scope fucking AI voices from like 10 years ago.
Say, yeah. The AI is watching you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I was just texting Selenos because I sent him like a little plan, and it's always like, he's such a fucking nice guy, but I'm always like if I wanted to take like a screenshot of my daily life and then showed it to myself when I was 15, I would be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
How did you manage that, But yeah, it's always cool.
Especially from that starting point. You could show that to yourself now, and you're just like, how the fuck does that even happen?
I know. But it's kind of like you believe in stuff and you think it's going to go there, and then it actually does, and then it becomes your day-to-day reality, Obviously, like, I make the example of him, but it's like, obviously we're friends now, and he's actually extremely nice guy, one of the nicest people I've ever met through music, like hands down. And I mean that, I'm not just saying that. But it's that, but then like everything else, all the podcast stuff and then the gigs and everything, and it's kind of like, it's cool because that's what we wanted to do. But then there is like another side to it where it's like, holy fucking shit, this is like, it's all actually happening, and their record store thing was really cool, man. It's a shame you weren't there, but that was fucking solid on Friday. Yeah. You saw that bit I sent you with the
I know you get the question from the crowd. It's like, so you've got this English guy on the drums, like, what's going on there? It's like, well, he's from Birmingham, so he's had a pretty tough upbringing.
Yeah, that's what the guy was saying. He was like, I get this question so much as well. Even when I had Tom on the podcast lately, Tom G Warrior, he asked me beforehand. He was like, so I know you're from Iran and Sully's from Syria, and you've got all this stuff happening, but what does your drummer do?
Yeah,
and and it's obviously like. At the Q&A, that's what I said. I was like, well, he's from Birmingham. He's had his whole life to put up with that accent, which is almost as bad as what me and Sully went through. So
I know.
Yeah.
The only contrast to that is you could say, well, it's the home of heavy metal, so you kind of get a pass in that respect.
Yeah, it's not even a pass, really.
No.
What I went on to say after that, like jokes aside, what I went on to say afterwards at the Q&A, I said something to the effect of, like we don't want a fucking special treatment. We just are in it for the music, and we're doing this because we enjoy the music, and we all enjoy the same passion. Our passion is the same as someone from South America, North America, Europe, fucking Australia. Like it's the same thing. We just like fucking metal, and and we like to go on stage and fucking rip and tear shit up. So I think that there's like a sense of. I don't know. A lot of people always say to us, so it's probably healthy, baby, for some people to hear the chat between you and I. By the way, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. We just got fucking straight into it there, didn't we?
Yeah, that's normally how it goes. But I think maybe it's healthy for some people to hear, because it's like we're not trying to put ourselves above anyone else because we have to deal with some extra shit for it. At the end of the day, we just want to play music, and hopefully get opportunities to play shows and meet some cool people and sell a bunch of records, not sell in the context of financially sell, but like actually have people interested in the music, and we are actually doing all of that now, so I can't even complain really, and then on top of it, if we can give people the perspective of, okay, this is the kind of shit we had to go through, make sure that doesn't happen over here, then that's kind of like the additional bonus on top of that, really.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, really. When you going back to the start of it from, for me and you, because we've been doing it for quite some time now. Yeah. Going back from, 2011, which I think doesn't necessarily, we don't really see that side of it as much nowadays in terms of, what the band's doing and what people are talking about, because at that time we weren't known, we were just playing. It was just the four of us. We were just playing. We were figuring shit out. We didn't really have much of an idea of what we were doing.
It's a very good point, actually. I hadn't thought of that, but you're 100% right. Yeah. People have no idea because we were just a small fucking band, in mushrooms playing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We were just getting at that time as well. I mean, we started the band very young, which is true for a lot of bands. We were like, obviously you were a bit younger at the time. When I came on board, we were 16 years old?
Yeah, still... I think I had just turned 17. Yeah, because I was just very slightly older than everyone else, but we were all like born within the same year pretty much.
Yeah. So then at that time, obviously you don't really know who you are as a person, let alone trying to make a band and putting music together and things like that. So
should we talk about that? Let's talk about the first rehearsal. I think that'll be fun. Because I kind of tried to cover some stuff on here when I did the TRIVAX quote unquote documentary episode for episode 111. But let's maybe talk about that. Like, what was going through your head, if you can remember, when we did that first rehearsal, which was on 4th of December 2011. Like I joked on the BBC documentary, I said TRIVAX is a Sagittarius band, Do you remember that? Do you remember like being like, oh yeah, there's this fucking crazy guy from Iran here playing the riff to Set the Torch on repeat?
Yeah, I think it actually started obviously before then. I think that date, 4th of December 2011, that was the first time where we actually came together and played stuff, because we had to go away and learn things, because at the time we didn't have any songs or anything like that. But I remember even before then, which was the first time when the two of us actually met, which now I have a very vivid memory of being sat in that classroom in college. And I can't remember which lesson it was, but it was, I remember it being after a lesson. And I don't know why we ended up staying behind, but there was me and you and Heather and Tom being sat on the table. Actually, I think it was because she wanted to introduce me and Tom to you, if I remember. But anyway, I remember that.
That's nice of her to do that, because I remember having talks with Heather. You know, for people listening to this, Heather was our college tutor at the time, and she was actually, I remember her talking to her before I had a band, telling her how much I was having a fucking nightmare trying to form a band together. Bearing in mind, yeah. I've barely been in the country for like 3 weeks and I'm already pissed off that I haven't got a band, you know. So when you look at it in hindsight, I think it was quite impressive getting a band together 2 months after I moved to the country. But then also at the same time, in my head, I was like, oh my God, this is going so slow. I can't believe I haven't got a band. I'm such a loser, you know, like. But she was actually quite supportive in that. So it's cool that you mentioned that she was introducing you guys to me. I didn't even know. So maybe there's some credit to her there as well, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think she did really well at the time, because I know there was a bit of a fuck up initially when you came over in terms of going into the wrong course, and because you were meant to be in our class from the beginning, and then there was a bit of a delay. So it was like, it was a couple of months, wasn't into the course before we had that initial meeting.
Fucking hell, I'm glad I've got you on. This shit I completely forgot about, and now you're reminding me. That is what happened, yeah, because I went into that room and I remember Matt Davis telling off this other kid for saying Z instead of Z. You know, he was like, we don't say Z, we're British. Which I was like, okay, cool. You know? Yeah, so you were saying, Heather introduced you and Tom to me.
Yeah, because I think initially it was about doing that whole thing of some kind of project where, you know, you need to form a band and write some songs and this and that. But I remember we kind of had that introduction and you got your laptop with you, and we were just talking about, you know, making a band, writing some songs and this and that. If I can't remember the conversation too well in terms of the details, but I remember you saying something along the lines of, I've got some stuff here already, I'll show it to you. And you got your laptop with you. So, you know, we're like, okay, yeah, cool. So pulled it out and started showing some riffs and tabs and things like that you put together and playing a few bits and pieces. And the first thing that struck me was like, holy shit, this is good material. Like there was an instant thing of, there's something here, you know, it's not just a case of, you know, sitting down listening to someone playing guitar, and it's like, okay, cool. You know, you could tell at that early stage, like there's something here, even if at the time I couldn't really put my finger on exactly what it was. But I could tell, you know, there's something good here. It just hasn't maybe manifested itself fully into what it needs to be yet, but you can see the kind of early stages are there. And then so from there, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, cool, let's go and play some songs together and kind of, you know, see what happens. And then I think from there, when we did that initial rehearsal, for me, it was kind of obviously a bit new because you were coming into the fold, but also kind of familiar in a sense because it was, you know, you'd got me, Ben and Tom, the old and original former members of TRIVAX when we started over here in the UK.
Yeah.
But we'd already been playing together, myself, Ben and Tom, for probably about 18 months by that point.
The Surgicals.
Yeah. What a fucking name.
I know, right? Yeah.
But there was a kind of familiarity in that respect because up until that point, we'd just been essentially playing a lot of covers, you know, Sabbath, Metallica, that kind of thing, because we were still pretty much figuring things out and we didn't really have any original material anyway, which we did kind of get a little bit towards the end. But when we kind of got to that point of, yeah, here we go, here's some original songs, that was when it just kind of morphed into TRIVAX by that point.
Yeah. I think the timing of it was actually perfect as well, because I think Ben, our old guitarist, he had maybe started to discover some more black metal stuff. I think he was maybe starting to get into like Mayhem and a bunch of like the classic Norwegian stuff. And then I think he had a couple of riffs too, if I remember right. So I think it was kind of like, for a moment, it was destined to go in that direction anyway. And then I think I came into the picture. And then I remember very vividly in the rehearsal being like, well, guys, this is my story. I came from Iran. This is all the shit that happened. We played like a few illegal shows there. I remember like exactly where I was stood in the room as I was talking to the three of you, and then showing the riff to Set the Torch on my white BC Rich and being like, yeah, you remember that?
Yeah. And then I don't remember from the time, but I remember afterwards because we were listening to some recordings when I think it was from that rehearsal, or maybe one or two afterwards, where we were jamming Set the Torch on that first riff, but we hadn't figured the rest of the song out, so we were just playing that riff for like fucking half an hour.
Yeah, we were. I'd like to quickly interrupt this episode for the following message. My band TRIVAX will be releasing our third full-length album, The Great Satan, via the legendary Osmos Productions on the 30th of May, 2025. If you're into extreme metal that's unapologetically defiant, politically and religiously charged, and unafraid to make bold statements where other ways shy away, then you need to hear this album. I would say that musically, The Great Satan blends dark ritualistic Middle Eastern elements with traditional folk and very dynamic usage of the extreme metal subgenres, creating a unique and immersive soundscape. The intro track actually utilizes folk instruments, including baklama and oud, and throughout the album, you will also get the usage of 3 different languages. One, which is, of course, my native language of Farsi, or otherwise known as Persian. We also have songs that are sung in Arabic and, of course, English. The album embodies rebellion, violence, and ecstasy, unafraid to say what so many extreme metal bands will not. Copies will be available directly from the TRIVAX Bandcamp page, or otherwise from the official Osmos web store. Thank you for your support, and please enjoy the rest of the episode. We were, and and it's kind of cool because it's a simple riff, but it has a technical element to it as well, so we were just kind of like getting into that as well. And I can't believe like how fucking quickly we were able to work together, because literally in 2 months we played our first show. Like 2 months of like us getting together, having that first riff, and then all of a sudden being at this much higher standard where we're like playing death covers from Individual Thought Pattern live on our first show. That was kind of fucking nuts, actually, if you look back at it, and we kind of became kind of notorious in college as well, remember like those were interesting times. I don't know if it's worth sharing that with people, but yeah, we made an impression, I think.
Yeah, certainly we did. I think probably one of the strongest impressions that I remember, which I'm pretty sure was from that first show, was when we came off stage afterwards, and there was just kind of like a bit of chaos afterwards, and everyone was like really stressed, and we're like, what's going on? Like we just come off stage, and then I think it was either Heather or Louise, one of the tutors, comes over. I
don't know what you're gonna say. Yeah.
The security guard thinks someone's just been murdered in the bathroom.
Yeah. We haven't stopped doing that since, have we?
No.
Happened in Banbury, remember, when the police actually came and checked out the venue, and they were saying to Ben, the owner, they were actually investigating the place, because they were like, oh yeah, we found a whole bunch of blood here outside, and we just yeah, that was that in itself was like already like what, 2018 or something. I think it's when we did that little tour.
Yeah, I was just thinking when we did those 3 dates, it was Banbury, Bristol, and somewhere else, wasn't it? Was it Birmingham? I think it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's when we almost fucking died in the car because there was like a dog running into the road. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that, but I'd forgotten when it happened. I just had that memory of, was it when we were going from Banbury to Bristol? I think it was, because I just remember driving along this country road and just going along. Obviously, you're doing like 60 miles an hour at that stage because of the road you're on. And I'm just going along, and then all of a sudden this fucking dog just lands in the middle of the road. And you've got like 3 seconds to think, okay, I can either carry straight on and kill it, or try and do something to avoid this.
And kill the whole band instead. Yeah, well,
Luckily,
luckily we got away.
Yeah, we managed to maneuver around it, but yeah.
Yeah, because that was the tour when I was still a little bit psychotic, so I thought it would be really funny if I didn't change my socks and pants for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Do you remember? And then I ended up throwing them in the Bristol River afterwards.
I know you could. By the time we got to Bristol, you could see the fumes coming out of your suitcase.
Yeah, it was. And then there's that dodgy photo from the hostel afterwards as well.
Oh god, yeah, that's it.
I'm washing my balls in the sink of the room with all the beds next to it. But yeah, man, interesting times. So yeah, I think this is one thing, Matt. You know, I was thinking about this before doing the recording here. I was like, maybe people who know me from the podcast era of my life, you know, will listen to this and be like, wow, Shayan's such a reasonable guy. Which, you know what? I am, okay, for the most part. I think I'm actually a very reasonable person, got my shit together, but back then I was a fucking complete maniac, you know, to the point where I don't think people would even believe it if they saw some of the shit that I was doing back then and stuff, you know, and because it was just kind of like, you know, you can imagine, you know, just being completely like fucking insane, you know, a kid on my own, you know, like also extremely lonely as well, you know, like constantly being like locked indoors, either at the uni or at the whatever house I lived with people and stuff, you know, and then, you know, all I wanted to do was just do the band and play music and go out. And at the time, we didn't even really have that many opportunities. To be fair, in the first year or two, we didn't actually even do that bad. You know, we were like fairly active considering we didn't know how to manage shows properly. We were just like playing anything and everything that was thrown at us, you know. So I remember like in 2013, we I think played Birmingham like 15 times or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
So we did shit like that.
We're pretty good, really. I think the first tail off that we experienced was 2014, which was probably in line with what you were saying, because the first thing that came to my head when you just said that was the infamous show in Sheffield, which I think really is probably a perfect illustration of kind of what things were like at that time.
Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind it's only, 3 years into the band's existence by that point? Probably not even that, actually. It was like September, October time, wasn't it?
It was 24th of November, 2014.
Okay, yeah.
Or 25th, thereabouts. Yeah.
Yeah. Can always rely on you to remember the dates.
I always do. Yeah, somehow.
But yeah, I mean, because actually thinking about it, that was probably either the first or one of the first gigs where we'd actually travelled outside of Birmingham to go and play, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was the second show. The first one was London at the Unicorn when we played the Celtic Frost cover. And then for whatever reason, we hadn't been back out of Birmingham for fucking ages. And then in 2014, we did a total of 3 gigs, which I should add was not by choice. You know, 4 gigs if you want to include the rehearsal show that we did for people that we knew. But I think that, the Sheffield one was the last one of the year at that point, and it was rough. It was rough. So I'll let you tell the story, because I'm getting you actually remember some details that I don't even remember, and I've already got pretty fucking solid memories. So what's your perspective of that Sheffield gig that we did?
Well, obviously when we were going up there, for the most part, the initial stage and process of it was fine. You know, we went up there, we got to the venue, got everything set up, and we're sort of good to go, you know. And then the first kind of moment of things unraveling was, I think, when we were getting ready to go on stage. And then we suddenly realized, you know, we're kind of looking at the time and getting ready, getting on the stage gear on, etc. And then we're like, okay, this band that's on stage, they should have finished by now. You know, what's going on here? That's fucking around or whatever. And then that was kind of going, and we're like, this is like, we should be on stage now, and this band is still playing and dicking around. And then the promoter, because we were backstage or in the bathroom, wherever, getting ready. And then I think was it the sound guy or the promoter came in, or they may have been the same person, to basically say, right, yeah, these guys have run over by 15, 20 minutes. So therefore you've only got like a 15-minute set. When we're like, well, get fucked. Like, it's not our fault that they've run over, and it shouldn't be a case that just because they've decided to play an extended set for whatever reason, then as a result of that, that's going to impact on our set, and we have to reduce our time based on what they've done. Like, that's bullshit.
Especially by quite a bit, you know, like maybe one or two songs, no problem. But like, you know, halving the set when we've like driven up rather from Birmingham, you know, just to do that one show is just kind of fucking ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly. I think it was just a case of, you know, the priorities are in the wrong place, and it was a bit of mismanagement. It's like, oh, we need to get it back on track, so therefore, right, you guys, you need to play less. And it's like, well, no, you need to figure something else out, because that's just not how it should work. So anyway, we go on stage and start playing the set, which was a bit of a fucking weird set list, if I remember.
Yeah, remember my amp wasn't working at first, so that already like took a bit of time as well.
Yeah, I think the songs we played were a bit unusual as well for what we were playing at the time and the sort of usual set list that we were playing.
We had like both Wormwood and Nemesis in the same set. I think that was the last time one of the last times we ever played Nemesis, you know, which I don't think many people even know that song. That's the third track of our very first EP, Set the Torch, you know. It's a good song, actually. I was thinking about it the other day, you know. I wish somebody fucking books us and gives us a 3-hour set list so we can actually like play all of the songs, because we're quite good at like reviving old shit. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, there's just to touch on that. I think a lot of the old stuff was there's a lot of good stuff in there that we've never put out that we could do some stuff with at some point. Obviously, it's a lot different to what we're doing now, but even that early stage. Some of the songs that we had in there that never saw the light of day, I think there's some good stuff.
But it's different, but also, I know it's a bit of a tangent here. I agree with you, it's different, but somehow, now that we've kind of circled back into the more Eloah/Great Satan style of the band, I actually think some of those older songs wouldn't even be that weird to have now, because we kind of did a full circle on our style, you know, where we went full on esoteric black metal for, you know, around like 2014, 15-ish, and then Sin was kind of like that, and then we kind of started coming back into the more metal sounding stuff. So I actually think the early stuff wouldn't even be that far off if we were to do some of them now. The problem is no one would fucking know what we're playing.
Well,
or I could joke that no one already knows what we're playing anyway, but fortunately, that's not entirely true now, so there we go.
No.
But you were saying about the Sheffield gig.
Yeah, so when we actually go on stage and then, you know, we start playing the set, and already by this point, we're all kind of pretty pissed off, because it's kind of in the back of the head of, we need to kind of play a shorter set and make some kind of compromise on what we came to do. But also at the same time, we're thinking, you know, fuck that, we've come here to play the set list, so we're going to play the set.
And the sound guy was drunk as well.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Smashed drunk.
Yeah. So, you know, we're on stage, we're playing, and we ended up playing, what was it? It was either 2 or 3 songs in the end, wasn't it? Where we finished the song. I think it might have been Nemesis. Was that the last song that we played on the set? I've got a feeling.
Well, it wasn't supposed to be the last song, but it was. Yeah,
exactly. Because we played that song, and then I remember the sound guy coming over to the front of the stage and just being like, right, that's it, stop, you need to get off. And we're just like, you know, what the fuck? We've come up here, and obviously we kind of knew that we needed to do a shorter set anyway, but we're still thinking, well, we shouldn't really be forced to be doing this shorter set just because of the actions of the other band. So anyway, we had to come off stage because that was that kind of thing, you know, the sound guy was like, that's just what it is, you need to finish, you need to come off stage.
The thing is, sorry to interrupt you there, but like, it's not even so much the actions of the other band as such, but it was just a really poorly organized event. Like, the promoter had no fucking idea what he was doing, you know. So I think that it was like a multitude of things that kind of fell into place, you know. And that, by the way, for, you know, to play the devil's advocate, part of that was also my guitar amp not working, but I don't think that lasted more than maybe a couple of minutes, you know. So it was still like, it was a situation where we were being treated quite unfairly, you know, as, you know, we'll get to the payment section now if you want to move on to that.
Yeah, so after all of that, you can imagine we're all really pissed off by that point, coming off stage and basically just playing 2 or 3 songs, and then that's, you know, we're done. So we go back, and then he comes over and he's like, right, okay, guys, I need to pay you for the gig. And it's like, okay, cool. And he hands us this fucking envelope with a fucking £2 coin in it.
Was it
like,
£2 or £3? I keep remembering £3, but it might have been two.
Yeah, it was one. I think it was definitely a £2 coin, and then it might have had another pound coin in there as well. You're just looking at this like, is this guy fucking for real? Like, if cool.
You know what was really funny is I was talking to Gavin from Damnation on here.
Yeah.
Great fucking guy, by the way, but you know, he's a solid guy. Really enjoyed having him on as a guest. And he made a really funny point. I don't know if you heard that or if I told you about it afterwards. He said, well, did you have an agreement in place with the venue or the promoter? And I was kind of like, maybe. And then he was like, what if he paid you £2 or £3 extra? And then you decided to like trash the place afterwards anyway. Imagine if that was the case, Matt. Imagine if that's actually what's happened here.
Just the guy comes over like, I need to give these guys something after what they've gone through. Just go and fucking destroy the place afterwards.
Well, that's what I did. You know, that's kind of the punchline, I guess. Yeah,
after that point, you know, I just remember then, like, he gives us this envelope with the £2 coins in it, and we're like, fuck, what is this, you know? So we go back into the bathroom then, and obviously, you know, we need to get changed and, you know, take off the gear and whatever. And I just remember I'm standing there, you know, just getting myself sorted out, and I can just see, because, you know, you stand in the bathroom, you've got the mirror in front of you, so you can kind of see what's going on behind you. And I just remember standing there looking in the mirror, just seeing you having an absolute fucking fit behind me. Just walking around, just go in and pull the fucking door off the toilet straight away, and then go and destroy the hand machine, the hand dryer, just rip that to shit and just chuck everything apart. And I was like, okay, cool, yeah, I think that's probably deserved what's just happened.
Yeah, don't forget the blood as well. I took Sathamel's blood and fucking went to party with that all over the place.
Oh, yeah. So by the time we finished like that, the bathroom was just a complete wreck site by the time we came out of it afterwards. The whole thing was just torn to pieces, basically. And so then by that point, we'd taken everything out of the venue, and we were standing up by the car because the car was parked up at, a little further up the road from where the venue was. And we're all standing there with some of the Sathamel guys. I think Aaron and Sully were with us at that point.
Because that's the first time we met Sully as well.
Yeah. And I think it was just after Sathamel had finished playing, because they went on stage directly after us. And I was standing there, and we're just chatting and, you know, kind of discussing what's just happened. And then I remember you coming up, and you were just like, you know what, no, this is not enough. I'm not happy with this. Just after what you've just done to the venue, you're still like, no, this is not enough. Like,
I can't believe you've done this.
Yeah, because where we were standing as well, it was slightly higher than the venue, the car park. It was elevated, you know, slightly higher up the hill. So when you look out, you can see the venue over in the distance. And then next to the venue, there's this site. I don't know, I can't remember exactly what it was, but this site that's filled with gas bottles.
Yeah.
So then, I remember you're like, you know what, this is not enough. I'm going to go into there. I'm going to break into there and get a gas bottle, and I'm going to go and blow the venue up. And we were at the start, we were all just like, you know what, that's fair, cool. And you went off.
Yeah, so this is, you know, for reference, you know, I think people should probably know by that point that I think you guys were quite used to like how much of a maniac I was back then, especially when I used to get drunk. I don't think I was even drunk that night, or if I was, I can't remember it. But this kind of thing wasn't like completely unheard of for me back then,
no,
you know.
And I think, like now you just touched on, I think people who know you now or have gotten to know you in the past few years, if they saw what you were like back then with drinking and things like that, they'd be like, "What? Like, how is this even the same person?"
It's not. That's the truth. It's not the same person. You know. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we were kind of used to it by then. I mean, we'd been experiencing it for a good couple of years by that point.
Yeah.
So when you said that, it was just kind of like, okay, cool, whatever. And you ran off back down the hill to go and try and get this gas bowl. And then I said to the guys, because it was me and Ben and Ben's dad and Aaron, and I'm pretty sure Sully was there as well. And
Phil as well, I imagine, because he was playing bass, yeah.
Yeah, we were all stood by the car at this point. And I remember saying to everyone, I was like, Shine's going to come back in a minute and we're just going to have to fuck off.
You did say that, yeah. That's the fucking craziest part. You did actually turn around and say that. Like, it was like full-on foreshadowing, which obviously I didn't know this until later, which was even the more interesting part. So you say that, oh yeah, Sean's going to be back here and then we're going to have to fuck off in a second.
And then shortly after that, it became aware to us that the promoter was looking for you because he'd either called the police or he wanted to call the police. And he was looking for you. And we were like, okay, yeah, we need, and I think, and then for some fucking reason, because I said, right, we need to find Sean, we need to clear off now because it's time to go. And then for some reason, Ben's dad was like, oh yeah, Sand, yeah, I'm just going to go for a piss. I'll be back in a minute. I was thinking, but then I remember you came running out of the venue, came running up the hill, back into the car park, and it was like, right, guys, we need to go.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
And it was like, I can't remember exactly what happened with you that caused you to come back. It might have been the revelation of the promoter was looking for you, police on the way or whatever.
That's what it was. Yeah.
And then I just remember you coming back at like, guys, we need to go. I was like, okay, right, that's it. We all just jumped into the car and just went, basically, which it actually was fortunate that the car park was positioned where it was. There was kind of that bit of separation from the venue.
Yeah, it was perfect. You guys hadn't even finished your spliff yet. You were like halfway through, and then as soon as I came and said that, it's like, right, chuck it in the bushes, fucking get in and fuck off. Yeah.
So it was kind of lucky in one respect that we could just basically go in and just exit, and we're like, right, see you later.
Yeah. And I was like so paranoid the whole drive back. I remember being sat at the back of the car looking out the window, and it was like very, very quiet on the roads. And I was like so paranoid, like, fuck, like something's got to come of this now. And I was like waiting to see, like, like when you've done something, you shouldn't have done. And then you start to get paranoid. And then, I was like looking around waiting for like police sirens or something to show up in the mirror and be like, oh, fuck, I'm going to get deported now, or something.
Well, it's kind of the same. Like I was because I was driving, so I was thinking, even though they wouldn't have done it because they had no idea what car we were in, and I was thinking like, fucking hell, the police are going to turn up in a minute. Like looking in the mirrors, being like, I'm just going to see the blue lights in a minute, and they're going to come and tell us to pull over. So then, as a result of that, obviously we didn't know where we were, so I was following the sat nav because I was concentrating so much on, oh shit, the police might turn up and suddenly appear in the mirrors that I just kept fucking missing the turns where we needed to go. Just fucking driving around in circles in Sheffield trying to get out.
But part of why I was extra paranoid is because I know we had some drugs in the car as well. That I mean, to be fair, it was only weed, which but still, I think we had a nice amount, so. Yeah, it was that was all kinds of stuff that was just like racing through my head, like, fuck, this is not going to work out. But then we went back, and then we never heard back anything from them. That was the craziest part. When we went back for weeks, I kept like checking the band's like Facebook inbox because that's how we used to book shows back then. And I never heard anything back about the show. And obviously we never heard anything since then other than the tale itself. But it's just kind of like astonishing to me that they never like, it's like that's how little they gave a fuck, I think. Because they could have done that at least. We've had worse instances of that happen, where a show happens, not with us, but when we did the Diocletian run, remember that that fucking daft bint at the front who during our set she was fine, and then when Diocletian played she started throwing salutes, so then Brendan just fucking comes off stage and just like fucking pummels her, and then which that was fucking cool because I was upstairs talking to someone by the merch table, come downstairs to watch the rest of the set because I was like really excited. I was like, oh fuck, cool, Diocletian, like huge fan. So I was like, even though we're doing the tour with them, I really wanted to watch them for all of the shows. I remember the stage was so small, they actually taped Rigel's mic to the fucking ceiling, you know, and they had the mic stand coming down at him because he's so tall as well. Yeah. But then when that happened, I came outside and then there's like commotion. I'm like, what the fuck happened? And then one of you guys was like, oh yeah, some woman was just throwing Nazi salutes. So the guys just basically fucking, you know, they just like attacked her from stage, and then like fucking she gets kicked out of the venue. And then for the whole duration of the tour, every city we went to, her boyfriend keeps like messaging Daryl, basically the agent and promoters, keep saying like, oh yeah, we're gonna have police waiting for you there everywhere you go because you assaulted her or whatever. Which the ironic part was that the guy that she was at the venue with wasn't the actual boyfriend who kept messaging us afterwards. So I have no fucking idea what was going on there. Do you remember that? She was there with some bloke and they were like, they seemed kind of close, but then the guy that kept messaging us afterwards was a different guy. I don't know if you knew that, but...
I wasn't aware of that. Maybe she's got a different boyfriend for every day.
Well, you know, but that was the weirdest thing. Like, I don't know who this lady was, you know, I whatever, you know, it's just, you know, do your thing. You know, she did something stupid, and then in response, she got some retaliation, which I think she kind of deserved, you know, but at the same time, it was just funny because turns out then she's not actually from up north. She's from south, but then she somehow came to a gig in Newcastle, and we were already playing London and Bristol and the other places. So I don't know why she had to come to Newcastle just to fucking throw a salute and then get kicked out of the fucking show. But I don't know. That was entertaining. But this is what I was saying, that in that instance, we were getting messages, oh yeah, the police are going to show up at one of your gigs because tour members assaulted this lady or whatever. But then at the same time, we never had that from the Sheffield gig, even though I did actually try to fucking destroy the venue. But I don't know. Just strange stuff that always happens with us, I think.
You would have expected, like, at the very least, some kind of ban for the band at the venue. It was like the fact there was literally nothing from it. There was like, okay, maybe they don't give a fuck either.
Yeah, maybe there is that. Should we maybe talk about the album? What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, that's probably what people tune in for, and then instead got fucking Tales of the Road, you know?
Yeah. Like, I want to hear about this latest album. It's like, okay, here's an album from 10 years ago.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I'm happy how it turned out, man. I don't know what's your feelings on it, but I think you did like the best job I think I've ever heard you do. I think we all did, to be fair. This is like, in terms of performance and creativity and everything, it is like the best thing that I think we've ever done.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what helped it become what it is was the fact that we were all so aligned on what we wanted to achieve with it, you know, in terms of, because we've got a bit of experience by this point of you know, making records and going through that process and kind of understanding how that side of it works, because, you know, I think that in itself it takes a bit of time to kind of learn that and sort of become comfortable with it, which I don't think is necessarily always comfortable, because you still have the thing of, you know, you need to go in, you need to perform, you need to make sure it's 100%, because it needs to be the best version of itself that it can be, you know, when you're actually creating it. And there's only really a short period of time where you have that opportunity to go and actually make the thing. You know, if you think, even we had some assistance from the label in terms of having funding to be able to do things with the studio. But even then, you know, there's still only a limited amount of time that you have to be able to go in and lay everything down and put the whole thing together. So I think what then helped us with that was the fact that the actual work for the album started way before the time we actually went into the studio, which is pretty typical anyway. But then,
quite a bit, actually. Like, I was writing Demon's Melancholia back in early 2020, and then when we went through because Eloah was already finished by then, and then some of the parts of Demon, like for example that clean section in the middle, that is from when you and I were having those jam sessions during the first bit of the lockdowns, if you remember, which we came up with fucking loads of stuff back then.
We did, yeah.
Not everything made it, but that was like one of the bits that I was like, fuck, okay, this sounds pretty cool here.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember as well, actually, which is kind of funny thinking about it, but because I remember the opening riff for Demons, the very first one that comes in when the song starts. I remember, I think it was even before the we were doing those jamming sessions, because I remember it was when I was still living in Birmingham, and I remember you sent me a file, and you just said something on the email like, "Oh, just a bunch of ideas. I thought you should hear this." And I was like, "Oh, cool, okay." So start listening to it, and there's a bunch of riffs in there, and there was one riff in particular that stood out, and immediately I was like, "We need to use that." And I think I went back to you and said, "This all sounds great, but that one particular riff that needs to go in a song, something to that effect." And that riff was the opening riff of Demons.
Holy shit, I forgot it. So maybe that's older than I realize.
Yeah, because I think that was it was
because you moved to York. Was it February 2020? Was it thereabouts?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 1st of February.
So it must have been just before that. Okay, no, actually thinking about it, that does make sense, because I think I wrote that riff when I was living at the flat in Sheffield. So it must have been like, because I moved there and then you moved up to York, and then we both like hit lockdowns like straight away after we did that, which is fucking crazy, like how that intertwines with like the story of the whole thing. You know, it was almost like the lockdown thing, as shit as it was, and as much as obviously both you and I were against it, there was something about the timing that was actually perfect. You know?
Yeah. It really worked
in a way
well.
That's really hard to explain how it was perfect, but it just fucking was, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that shows it was weird, because obviously we were on tour, and then we had to basically cancel the tour because we went into the lockdown, and then we had to have some time off, because I think we were both pretty sure that we had COVID at that point.
Yeah, you fucking gave it to me. Yeah.
Probably gave it to everyone in the crowd.
Sharing is caring.
Well, exactly. But yeah, because then we had when we both sort of recovered.
Which, by the way, we sorry to interrupt you again. That we weren't like being reckless. We didn't even know it was a thing by that point. It was just kind of like we got it, and then the news came out. It's like, oh yeah, this is happening, and it was like, oh yeah, I wonder if this is that. And then it was like, yeah, I've never been sick for like 6 weeks in a row before, so that's got to be something. Yeah, straight out of fucking Fauci's funding into my lungs. Thanks, baby. You know.
Yeah. I mean, it was that at the time, you know, like you say, we didn't know. It was a case of how it would be if anybody treats an illness now. You know, it's like, because we were going on tour, you're not going to stop the tour just because somebody's got a fucking cold, are you? So it's the case, we turn up and it's like, guys, I'm ill. You're probably going to get it. We're going on the road. You know, that's just how it is. And we were
like, yeah, sure, no problem, you know, because we didn't really think much more of it at the time, you know. And you know what, probably, I know this might sound weird, but we shouldn't have thought more of it anyway. You know, I think that was fine. I think we still did the right thing, because that ended up being like one of my favorite tours we ever did as a three-piece anyway, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole experience was good, because I think it was one of the first experiences that we had where we would kind of classify it as what, you know, sort of what you might call the tour experience, in terms of, you know, you going down to a location, we met up, and, you know, rather than kind of, because we'd done tours in the past, but obviously with lack of funding and things like that, we would do maybe one show, like the tour that we did with Sathamal in 2016, where we did the Manchester show, and then we did Birmingham, but then we had to go back home afterwards, you know, because we didn't want to or have the money to spend on accommodation. But then that one was like, that was where it was like, okay, the whole thing, we're on the road and we're doing that.
Do you remember when we were in Manchester and then that fucking cat unlocked the door?
Oh, Jesus, yeah. That was...
I was thinking about this. This is one of the spookiest shit I've seen. Well, I've seen a lot of stuff, because this was, you know, so we played Manchester on a Thursday, which was on 30th of June 2016, and then we actually played Leeds the next day. But when we were in Manchester, we had the whole, like, the entire Iranian community of Manchester show up, you know, with like fucking, they gave us like a load of fucking, Sam gave me that massive tinfoil that we took home later, and inside was like a little, it was like a bong with like at least like an ounce of weed in it. I was like messaging him afterwards, thanks man, you know, like we said, yeah, we'll take care of that, no problem. And I remember like, because he also bought us a bottle of Bombay gin. Do you remember? Yeah, mixed with fucking orange juice, and then we just like fucking smashed through the whole thing in like fucking 2 hours. But we went back, and then we were staying at the Airbnb, and it was a room, and it was like a house, and then it was a room within a house, but then you could lock the door from inside the room. Yeah. And there was no one else in the house except like one or two cats that just kept going around. Yeah. And then I remember going to sleep kind of shit-faced. I think we all were. And I remember specifically because I was in the bed, and then I think Ben was in the corner to the left-hand side, and Phil was on the right-hand side, and the door was kind of like to my left. And then
I think it was the same. Yeah, same for me as well.
Because you and I were sharing the fucking double bed.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah, for reference, we've done that plenty of times. It's what happens when you're in a band. But to my left, I'm looking, and then fucking I wake up to the image of the door opening and a cat just fucking like walking in, sitting there and just like staring at me. I was like, and then I was just kind of looking at it like, oh yeah, cool, someone must have let it in. And I was like, no, they haven't. Yeah, everyone's asleep. There's no one in this house, and you can only lock this door from inside. So how the fuck did that thing get in here? And I remember specifically like looking at the lock. There was like a latch on it. You'd close it, lock it, and then you'd have to push it into the door. It's quite high up. There was no way for that cat to fucking open the door. But I'll wake up and walk, like looking at this cat walking into the room, and then we got up, and then by the door we find this like dead bird that the cat's fucking dropped off by the door, and it was just like the weirdest fucking thing, which by the way I made a necklace out of the bird and then wore it on stage later in Leeds, which me, Sully and Aaron trying to pierce a fucking hole through the bird so I could run a chain through it in the car park afterwards. Remember that? Yeah. Jesus,
I'm pretty sure as well, wasn't it a case that, because I remember being woken up in the night because I woke up and the cat was on my chest.
Right.
And I'd looked and I was like, what the fuck? And then, kind of look over and the door's open, and the kind of similar thought process of like, what the fuck's going on? But then wasn't it the case that then we kind of went back to sleep for a bit and then woke up again in the morning and the door was closed again? I've got a memory of that. I'm not sure if, because it was a while ago now, but I've got a feeling that we kind of woke up and the door was closed, and then we kind of had that.
Well, the thing was, there's lots of things you could like, there's lots of holes you could poke into that. You could say, oh, someone must have gone to the bathroom or forgot to lock the door behind them. But we were talking between us and no one had like left the room. So we were like very confused as to like how that happened.
Because we woke up and started talking like, there was a cat in here last night. And everyone was like, yeah, there was, wasn't there? And then we were like, how the fuck did the cat get in?
Yeah.
And where is it gone? Where is it now?
Yeah,
it was really weird.
Yeah, I was already in a weird mindset because I had just come out of the haunted flat, because I literally moved out of the flat. So I was at the flat from 3rd of June 2016 to 10th of June. 3rd of June, so you guys helped us move in there on the 2nd, which was a Friday. Then me and my ex at the time, we moved there on the 3rd, which was the Saturday, and then Saturday following week on the 10th we just left in the middle of the night, and I think I sent you guys like a long ass message, as you said, and then we had to stay in Birmingham Digbeth station all morning till about like maybe like 4 or 5 in the morning, where we could actually finally get a coach and then go to her parents' place in Sheffield. So it was already a fucking crazy time. And then like when we did the first show of the tour, and then we were like fucking sleeping in Manchester, and then that cat fucking Alahomora at the door and came. that was your phrasing, actually. You said that. It was just like it was so fucking weird, man. Weird times back then. Some really strange shit was happening. Hey, just a quick moment of your time. For the past 3 years, Iblis Manifestations has been entirely self-funded. This means that every subscription fee, every piece of equipment, all of the travel expenses have come out of my own pocket. Over time, people have asked me how they can support the podcast, and To be honest with you, up until now, the answer's been pretty straightforward, and that is simply spread the word. But now, there's another way. I have set up a Patreon account where followers of the podcast will be able to make monthly donations to the podcast, and this will help cover the costs of streaming gear and basically everything else that goes into making this show. This isn't about making a profit, and to be completely honest, it's not about breaking even either, because that's certainly not been the case for the last 3 years. However, if you do find value in the conversations that we're having on this podcast and wish to help them forward, then you can now support the show. Just head to the link in description and hit the Patreon button. And, of course, it goes without saying, thank you for supporting Iblis Manifestations. It is much appreciated. Yeah, but maybe let's go back to the album.
Yeah, kind of a bit of a tangent there, wasn't it?
Yeah, we'll do this. We have a lot of fucking history behind us, I think, so that's gonna happen. But one thing I want to commend you on as well, like on the record, what was so fucking good about the performance on this album, like the drums, yes, they are edited to some extent, but so is everything. Like you get that it's a standard of every album ever recorded now, where you do edit stuff to clean it up. But I think the editing on this one versus Eloah was like fucking bare minimum. Like there was not really that much stuff that needed cleaning up. So that's credit to you, for like, despite being a drummer for like so many years, you've like still managed to improve so much, even years later. Usually people get to a level and then they hit a plateau, but you just, I think we all, because we're so competitive as well, not only with each other, but kind of like against ourselves, that I think we just kind of feel like we have to keep pushing ourselves and keep getting better.
Definitely. It's definitely part of it, because the way I kind of approached this album particularly was in a vein of, I'm going to go in there and put down something that is going to outlive all of us by thousands and thousands of years, however long, it will exist for. So when you go in there, for me, it was a case of I wanted to lay down the best thing that I could lay down in that given moment, to be able to produce the best performance and kind of be able to be creative with it and come up with the parts and be able to mess around with it, but ultimately be able to lay down what needs to go onto the record and make sure that's as good as possible. But even as you said about the kind of competitive side, there's always for me a case of, okay, that was good, but what could be better?
Yeah, 100%. With all of us, always. Yeah.
And even that, when I listen back to the album now, which from my own personal standpoint, very proud of the album itself and, of what I did with the drums. But even when I listen to it now, it's like there's certain parts where it's like, okay, I could have done that better, or this might have sounded better if it was like this or that, because also the song, I don't really consider these songs to be static in terms of you write the song, because when you go from the initial writing stage up to the point of recording, the song goes through a continuous development cycle until you get to that recording point. And one of the things for me is that once you've reached that point of recording, that doesn't mean that cycle has to stop just because you've recorded it. For me, it's more of a case of the song. This is the song in that moment, taken from that moment. This is how it was at the time. And obviously then when you go and perform it and people know the song and listen to it, they expect to hear it in a certain way. So obviously you want to kind of come back to that and make sure that you're presenting it how it kind of exists on the record. But also there's room for the song to live in a way, because it's kind of, the songs themselves are their own entities, that it doesn't just then stop at a certain point and it's like, okay, well, that's that kind of thing. It continues and lives on after that point. So, and I've seen it many times, where say like when we've done the recording for Sin or when we did the recording for Eloah, and I've done the drums for it, and then 6 months or a year afterwards, I'll just be practicing the song either in the rehearsal or to myself, and there's a new part that comes out on the drums, and it's like, oh, holy shit, that sounds great. And then so it's like that then becomes part of the song. And there's kind of a thing then where you think, damn, I wish you could have had that on the actual recording, but it came later on in the cycle, so it kind of doesn't matter too much. But it's, so ultimately you can keep the songs just develop and keep developing, so you end up at a point where it might be a little different to what it is in the records, but I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, because I think it's the way that it moves over time. And you also have to consider, like, we as people are not static. We never remain the same. But no, that's not always the case, but generally,
hopefully it's not the case. But I think for us as musicians and as artists, I think we're always constantly developing and evolving, much like, how earlier we said that if someone had, for example, met me in 2014, 15, they've met a different person. They've never met me, basically, and I think that it's kind of the same thing. I think one thing that I always say on here is that as artists, we're kind of like emotional sponges as well. We absorb maybe a lot more than the average person does who works at an office job or whatever. We still have to do those things, but that's only just to like kind of get by and kind of coexist with the world and just survive. But I think for us, being an artist is like, no one asked us to start doing this. We did it because we had to do it. It was it's out of a place of a need, and it remains to be that way to this day. And in fact, that need has, ironically enough, never been more relevant than it is now. That, fuck, we need to do this. We need to play these songs. We need to go on stage. We need to do this. And I think that, the more you kind of experience life on a more broader scale, the more you absorb that. That'll then affect your art. That'll affect how you're making music. That'll affect how you're performing music. And one thing that I think I can very proudly give us credit for is the fact that we never stop evolving. And I think that's a pretty evident thing. It's kind of like the obvious thing in the room, but it's to say that that's just a big part of who we are, because we're constantly evolving as people and then implementing that back into the art. And as a result, these songs, even long after they are recorded and published, they still continue to grow with us in a way. They all do. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'd noticed that actually when we touched on some of the early TRIVAX material. I was actually jamming on some of that not too long ago. Some of the really, really old songs. A couple of songs that we've never actually released or even recorded or anything like that. And I could see that immediately, because I obviously knew the song and knew what was coming next in terms of the structure of the song. But then what I was playing recently was very different to what we were playing, 10, 11 years ago when we were actually playing those songs.
Absolutely,
because that kind of natural progression of having that more life experience, having more experience as a drummer, and knowing what I'm going to play or what I want to play, what kind of put onto a song, what I think sounds good. Now compared to that time is obviously very different, because you've gone through that whole process. So, and that's why I don't think it remains the same, because you can play the song and the song is the same in effect, but it's not the same person playing the song. After all that time.
Yeah, well, you know what they say, every 7 years, all the cells in your body die off. So it isn't the same person playing those songs, technically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then I think as a result of that, what we've produced for this album, which we've said between us as well, like it's easily the best piece of work that we've created, which we're all very proud of. But I could very easily imagine that by the time we come around to recording the next album, and we're in this position for the next one, we could very easily be saying the same thing that we're saying now.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't be surprised.
I actually have no questions about that. Like, I 100% we're going to be saying that, Because the thing I say to people, I think Great Satan and Eloah, complement each other really well. But
Yeah.
you know, Sin to Eloah is a fucking dramatic jump. Everyone who's heard both albums can tell you that. You know, it's what we keep hearing as well. But I think that the jump from Eloah to The Great Satan is like kind of equally as much of a fucking step up. Personally, I feel that way, you know. So I think Eloah was a good album. The production on it was definitely a step up. Although, actually, there are things about that I would also want to change, you know. But I think what we were trying to do with The Great Satan, well, not trying, but like I think our subconscious intent that we maybe never even discussed, but it is 100% something that's behind the album, is let's make it as hard as possible to want to progress these songs after they're finished and recorded. You know what I mean? So it's like what you're getting is about as good as it gets. I think what was so cool is when you and I went to the rehearsal room for like fucking, I don't know, like half a day, just like fleshing out the songs and then actually changing the structures together. Because normally it's just me doing a lot of stuff on my own and then I send it to you guys and then you'll later add your own thing in the studio. But the fact that we kind of, in a state of collaboration, changed the song structures was so useful. Like I think Ending of Ramadan being like maybe like one of the most, fucking... You remember when we were sat down and then it had this massive like 3-minute long outro that was like all solos and all this melodic shit happening, and I said to you, I said, this sounds too happy. It's not a song that's supposed to be happy. It's the most fucking heart-wrenching fucking song and event that happened, and by making it too epic, it's and too melodic and too success, like this like, you know, grandiose thing at the end, it makes it more about us and less about those kids that actually blew up in the minefield. So I want to have a melodic section at the end that's a lot shorter and maybe quite sad, and then just fucking end it there on a really harsh riff instead. You remember, like, and then we just chopped the song like easily by like 3 minutes, and then I just came up with that riff on the spot, the harmony section. Came up with it on the spot, said, okay, this is what it is. This is where we'll end the song. And I think it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think so, because like you say, you don't really want to kind of, after you've gone through that song, because at that point, you know, you're a good 5-6 minutes into the song, and those 5-6 minutes leading up to that point are pretty relentless in terms of, you know, there's no break in the song, there's no kind of dip in the energy or anything like that. And the lyrical content and everything up to that point is really full on. So you kind of, it's like you're building and building. You're kind of waiting for that point in the song where it kind of drops down a little bit to kind of give a bit of space to breathe. But then you don't really then want to kind of diminish what you've just done after that point.
Yeah.
Like you said,
100%.
that kind of then sort of turning it around and making it more about us in terms of like, hey, check out these fucking cool solos and what we can play and this and that. But after what you've just, you know, done in the song before that point. So I think what we ended up on instead worked really well, because you get to that point in the song and there's finally like a bit of a break, but it's the break in itself still has that intensity, you know, especially I think that comes across more so in the live setting, which is pretty much always the case for us anyway. But you can really feel that energy when it gets to that point, and then when it goes into the melodic section, and it just complements the song in a much better way, and I think makes it more cohesive, because even though you could kind of say, okay, well, you know, you've got a bit of a solo in here, you've got this melodic section, so maybe you are kind of drifting into that area a little bit. But I think for me, when I listen to it, I don't really get that so much. I think it's more a case of, in that time at the end of the song, it gives you more of an opportunity to kind of reflect on what's just come before, and you kind of have that moment of actually taking time to think about what has happened and what we're speaking about in the song. So, which allows it to work really well, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe this is good for people to hear, because we're very meticulous about the intention of each song and the structures and everything. I think Great Satan was another one where we like completely shifted the structure. Same with Demon. I think the B side of the album in particular, we did a lot of shifts on that one in particular.
Yeah.
But speaking of Ramadan in particular, to me, it's a song that. I mean, the theme of it is just fucking heart-wrenching, like it's, I said to you before, like I fucking cried writing the lyrics multiple times. Like specific lines would like literally trigger like physical reactions in me when I was like looking at them or reading through it and stuff. But in a very weird way, I do liken the song to One from Metallica, We've never had this conversation, but like in a way in my head, like maybe not musically super similar, but something about the structural arrangements, but also the lyrics, it's a similar theme. It's just the torment and the horrendousness of war and what that can leave you inside. Now, I know in the case of One, obviously it was inspired by the whole, what was it, Johnny and His Gun or something like that? It was a book originally that then they made a film about. I think I'm butchering the name, but I think it was that actually, Johnny and His Gun. Where it's obviously the guy with that terrifying fucking footage of the guy with that square thing on his face.
Yes, no arms and legs and trapped blind and deaf and
he's like
trapped in your body.
Yeah, which is fucking horrific, and you can imagine that, So I love that aspect of that particular song, but I think one thing that perhaps I don't like about it, and I can say this now after decades of listening to the song and just thinking like what a fucking masterpiece it is, that solo section, that not Kirk's solo but the harmony solo at the end, I don't think that like needed to be there, which they got like, in the Black Album, they used to extend that part and play those fun solos. And then, especially like some of Hetfield's bit on that, from Live Ship Binge and Purge, it's like it's kind of funny almost, because he's like, you can tell they're like, they're a bit steaming, and then they're like deep into the show and they're just improvising those parts. It's fun. It's great. It makes for a good show. But then I think like the lyrics are too dark for harmony section that's gonna impress the audience. It's like, we're not trying to impress you, we're just trying to leave you with this piece to go and contemplate on it. You know what I mean? This is not about TRIVAX being great at, look at all these melodies and cool shit that we can play, which we absolutely can. That's in our arsenal, 100%. But that's not what the song is about, So I think cutting that part out it was almost like learning from my own observations of One. It's like that harmony section, in my opinion, like that outro doesn't need to be as extended. Let it be harsh and let it be just this fucking, horrendous thing that you play, and then it ends on a high note, but it doesn't need to go on for as long for you to like impress us. Just let us take the bitterness of the lyrics and just sleep on it, That's kind of how I felt with Ramadan, I thought, let's just fucking end it there, and then it's the last thing that you hear before the outro, really,
Yeah, definitely. It's, I think, what it ultimately comes down to is, which we all kind of follow, is that sense of we're not kind of putting our own egos on it too much in terms of it needs to have, like, I don't need to go in and be like, right, guys, it needs to have a really fucking complex drum part that needs to come in here and it has to be on the song. It's more a case of we need to make sure we are serving the song and making sure the song exists in the way that it needs to exist. And I think there you come together more as a collective, rather than as an individual, because you're saying, right, because it's not just one of us, we're all coming together to create it, and we can't do it without each other. We can, like, I could do the drums, but you can't have the drums without your input. We can't have it without Sully's input. And having the three of us together, I think, is what makes TRIVAX what it is today as well.
100%, yeah. The purpose of it is to serve the song and serve the piece itself that we are all just kind of collectively feeding into as an entity of its own, as you perfectly put earlier.
Yeah, definitely. Because, one thing as well, like with the band itself, I think it's, which we've kind of spoken about this before as well, where I think more so now, we kind of felt this a little bit in the beginning. And I think this kind of goes back to what I said earlier about when we had that initial meeting in the college, and I had that feeling of there's something here, is that the band itself exists above us, in the sense of TRIVAX is its own thing. It's not just us. Like, TRIVAX exists as its own thing. And as it progresses, it's more a case of these things are happening because they need to happen. We needed to form the band. We needed to write the songs, put the albums out, go and play these gigs, go and spread this music outside, as we've started now going out to Europe and visiting different countries, etc. So, and the more that we do it, the more that feeling becomes like, okay, it becomes more powerful, I think, in terms of the band, and it just grows and grows and grows, slowly and steadily, but then sort of becomes more powerful at the same time as it's growing.
But I think it also becomes more apparent as well that, oh yeah, hang on, this is a living, breathing thing of its own, which I won't go into too much here, but I've explained to you, like we talked about this before, how it literally, allegedly, I should say, is a thing that exists in other dimensions, and it has a life of its own, and then it manifests in certain ways here. I think it's a brilliant and powerful thing, But I also think that even just from, there's got to be like some kind of science involved with it that maybe makes it easier to explain, because it's never an easy thing to explain. But there is a whole process. I think TRIVAX is it really is an entity of its own that is continuously trying to manifest itself. And the thing is, I think it seems to have its own intelligence, because it only appears to want to manifest where it needs to as well. Like, that's a very interesting thing. I kind of think about it a lot. Like, I get that, we write the music, or like I write pretty much all the riffs on my own or whatever, but that's like, I don't know. There's like, it's a thing of its own that it completely like knows what it wants and where it wants to go. All we gotta do is just keep pushing it. I'm a firm believer of that, especially as of last year, for reasons that at least. It's a very powerful thing, and it's just like, it feels like I feel like it's such an honor to be a part of it. Like. Yeah. There's like there's a more mundane industrial element of it, like, oh, this many streams, this many shirt sales, tickets, and oh, we've played this country. No. There's something else here. We always used to, like, back in the day when it was four of us, we always used to call it the fifth element, but it's like that thing is way more apparent now than I think it ever was back then, when we were like even quite desperately searching it. Now it's like kind of obvious, like, oh yeah, this thing is got a spirit and energy and the mind of its own, and we should, I think, just simply at the very least respect it, and then second to that, then feed it, see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that also have that kind of experiencing that and understanding that side of it a bit more, then also kind of feeds into the sort of competitive nature that you mentioned earlier, where we are kind of, for myself at least, it's kind of a case of, okay, I know what I'm doing, what I want to be doing, where I'm going, things like that, which obviously aligns with the band. So then it's a case of, okay, I want to do this and focus on this. So then everything else in my life, the decisions that I make, then a result of those decisions are being made with the band in mind and the future of that, because it's a case then of, by having, I think, that purpose of knowing what you want to be doing and where you want to be going, it then allows you to align yourself and kind of put yourself in a position of, right, okay, this is what I need to do to be able to achieve that and go down that path, you know, in terms of just something simple like, you know, becoming the best drummer and best version of myself that I can, because by doing that, that then allows the band to move more smoothly and progress in that direction that it needs to go to. So then you kind of get into that mindset then of being like, okay, that's where I think we push ourselves quite a lot, you know. And I think we've had feedback many times where we might play a gig or do something this or that, and we come off afterwards and we say to ourselves and friends and family, be like, you know, that it was good, but, you know, X, Y, and Z was shit, or we didn't like this, or this needs to be better. And then everybody says, you know, oh, you know, it was a great show, you know, don't focus on that side of it too much, and, you know, kind of don't bring yourself down and that. And which I understand, you know, obviously you want to celebrate the successes that you've had, but I think inherently we always focus in because we're like, okay, this side of it was good, but this side of it was not good. So then we need to go back and we need to fix this side of it that wasn't good, because the next time we go and do it, we need the whole of it to be good, not just 70% of it or 80% of it. We want 100% of it to be good. And by doing that, then it's like a constant race of, not a race, but, you know, that constant journey of, you go and do it and it's like, okay, that was good, we need to focus on this. And then you come back next time and it's like, okay, that part was now good, but then maybe this part was not so good, so we'll go and focus on that and make sure. And then it's an ever evolving process of improvement and working on it, so that ultimately you can, I say, arrive at a point where you're completely satisfied, but I don't think you will ever arrive at that point, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think it's a way, it works for us, because I don't think, you know, from what we've achieved so far, I think it could have been easy for us to at some point have said, oh yeah, that was great, like we've achieved this, so that, you know, that's great, and then kind of taking the foot off the pedal a little bit. But I think
we've never fucking done that.
No,
never.
No, exactly, because there's that constant push and constant, I think there's that burning desire inside, like, even though what we've done so far has been great and I think we've achieved a lot of good things, at the same time, it still feels like we're still in the early stages. You know, there's still a lot more that we wanted to go and do and achieve.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And at the same time, we're just like carving a legacy as well, you know. But I think that the legacy it surpasses us as individuals, is the thing that I keep coming back to, you know. I think that, you know, what's really interesting about what you're saying there is the best feeling, which I've been getting more and more frequently as of late, is the thought that occurs in your head whilst you're on stage, where you're dreading the finish line because you don't want it to come, because you're enjoying the moment so much, you know?
Yeah.
That's,
oh yeah, absolutely.
That's what it's all about, you know, like, and obviously I think with the way we do our shows, especially the way we end every show and have done for the last, I think 7 or 8 years now, we make the ending worthwhile.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, so I don't think there's any complaints about that, but that's the best thing, you know, because ultimately there's something much deeper about it. It's not just being good for the sake of being good, but when everything falls into place, when the crowd's on par, when the sound is good, when the, you know, I mean, these are, by the way, things that for the most part are out of our control, which I actually think we're one of the bands that, I'm not saying this just because it's us, but I think we're very, very good at adapting to our environment and just working with what we've been given. Okay, we have a high standard, But at the same time, I think we're one of those bands that never let the environment or the obstacles take away from our own experience and thus the experience that we deliver to people. I think that's always been a consistent for us, especially more so in the last sort of 4 or 5, maybe 6 years that we really like got the hang of what we're doing. I think that what's cool about it is that it's not just playing a good show. It's not like seeing how many shirts we can sell, but I think that is it's achieving a higher state of consciousness, because there's a magic that unlocks when you have all of the right drum parts, all the right structures and the flow to the song, all of the right riffs, all of the right words and things that we say and we speak out into the room. There is a power to that when it's utilized properly and when we're all in perfect synchronicity with one another, it does something to your consciousness and does something to the subconsciousness, because after that you feel it's like a constant process of battling to death for some sense of enlightenment. That's how I feel about TRIVAX shows. Like when we're playing, I always feel like I always feel good about having the opportunity to do it. I feel fucking great about having the opportunity to play these shows, because to me, it's an opportunity to enhance my own state of being. It's to enhance my own reach to that sense of the ultimate consciousness, you know, or in Nietzschean terms, the Superman, you know, or the Ubermensch. I feel like to me, playing TRIVAX shows is a journey towards reaching that perfect state of mind, which is something that it's like we're not like 100% there, but every time we do this, somehow like we're getting closer. Every time we do it, we get a little step closer, you know. So maybe years down the line when we are not here, if people look at that, they might see that, oh yeah, this was a band that released such and such albums. Wow, great songs, you know, good lyrics. Wow, you look at the footage, it's like, oh wow, they were pretty cool live. But then it's like for us, it's a spiritual journey of reaching our own ultimate self. And I think that's kind of the process of what it is. And I also at the same time accepting the fact that the actual ultimate itself may never occur in this format of the matrix that we currently reside in, but rather is finding joy in the pursuit itself, you know. So it's the famous quote, it's not the pursuit of happiness, but the happiness of pursuit. And that's what TRIVAX shows and what we're doing with this band represent to me. You know, I say band, I think the term band for TRIVAX is almost like a derogatory term, because it's so much more than that. It's an entity of its own that lives and breathes, and we're lucky enough to be a part of it. You know, we're like lucky enough to be its pawns and the units that are attached to it, you know. And you know, that's why I always say, like, on stage you might see the image of us as musicians and as spirits and beings creating a space, but where we really want to look at is the empty space between all of us. That's where the magic is going on, you know.
Because you can fit, it's one of those things that's always really hard to describe if you've either not experienced it or you just kind of looking from the outside, because like you say about kind of filling in the empty space, you know, I think part of the magic of that side of it is also the fact that it's not just limited to one of us. And I think part of the reason why we experience that side more so in the live setting or even in the rehearsal room is because when we all come together, it kind of creates that link between us. You know, when we're on stage, for example, you could kind of see it as, you know, from my perspective, because I'm obviously at the back of the stage, so from where I'm sitting, I can kind of see out, I can see you guys in front of me, and sometimes I can see the crowd, depending on how the stage is set up and so on. So in some respect, you can kind of see that link from where I'm sitting. It's all as if, you know, it's coming out to yourself and Sully, and then coming back in, and it's kind of like contained within that space on the stage, because we've said sometimes, where we'll be on stage performing and none of us can hear what the rest of us are doing. But then when you come back afterwards and look at the footage, we're all completely locked in and on point
100%.
and together with each other. And the song is, where it needs to be. You're watching back and you're thinking like, holy shit, at the time, like I had no idea. Obviously, like you think to yourself, okay, I'm playing my parts. My parts are where they should be. So everything should be fitting in together. But obviously you don't know that 100% because from where you're sat, obviously all the sound is going away from you. And then when you watch it back afterwards, you're like, oh, that was really good. You can see that everything was where it needs to be. So I think it links together. We don't need to think too much about that side of it. We kind of know it's there and happening. And then in the moment, I think the moment takes over in the sense of everything sort of becomes one.
Well, I think you can also talk about the fact that maybe these songs have, not maybe, definitely, I think these songs have a spirit of their own that literally manifests into reality, and I think that the more people that hear it, like I've always had that belief that I think songs, especially of a certain stature and of a certain thing, they exist in the ether somewhere, somehow, I don't know, either through radio waves or brain waves or something, because these are like, you can look at a song as decorations of time. You're like going around decorating time for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. Yeah. And every time that song occurs, it's more or less the same, So I think that especially when you're in a situation where people have heard a song before already, so they're almost like their minds are practiced and trained for it. And then once you bring that song to life, then you're fleshing out that time decoration in real time. And then now you're experiencing it in the flesh, and everyone who's at least heard it is experiencing it in the flesh, and everyone who's not heard it is now getting exposed to it, and thus now they are going to be affected by this thing that exists in a dimensional realms that perhaps you can't see with the eye, but it's a real thing. It exists there, okay? And I'm not talking about, it exists online on Spotify or YouTube. No. It exists in a real-time ether. Like it's somewhere. It's somewhere, and then at that moment in time, we are tapping into it, and we also happen to be the people who actually created that thing, which is, I say created. We are the people who channeled that thing. Yeah. And then to be channeling it in person is a deeply spiritual and intrinsic experience for me, which I can't quite compare it to anything else. But you somehow interfere with time and space in a way that I can't quite put into words. But playing this music for us has been that for me for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. And you also kind of experience that, like you said about channeling. We're not sort of playing the songs as such. It's more a case of the songs are being played through us, and then
yes, exactly. That's a much better way of saying it. Yeah,
and then the feeling that you get, because one of the other things as well is that feeling where obviously you're going through that whole process of the song, playing the song, and the emotional side of that. But then it's also when you start looking out into the crowd a little bit more, and you see, when you first walk onto the stage and you kind of see people standing there waiting for you to come on, and everyone is kind of, just kind of standing there waiting. And then as you start playing and you play the songs and the set progresses, you kind of see that change in people, and you kind of see how by playing the songs you're impacting and affecting their emotions and their state of mind. And then
that's really powerful. Yeah
really, really interesting to be able to see that and be able to observe that from from what you're doing to be able to impact other people's emotions and how they're feeling in that moment. I think it's a really powerful thing.
Well, like I said, I think we're impacting and warping time and space in a way by doing that, you know. And I would have never thought that any of this was really even possible, but it's kind of like the more you do it, the more it becomes apparent. So, which is the thing that, you know, I think partially is, not partially, but perhaps entirely makes it so relevant for us to even continue what we are doing, you know, because if we were completely slaves to the materialistic world, we would say, oh, why do that? You know, we could put the same energy into, I don't know, like running some kind of like, I don't know, whatever business or whatever, you know, but then this is kind of like, I think what we are doing, you can't buy this with money, you know, unless it's MK Ultra money, you know, and then you're actually doing LSD experiments and whatnot, you know, but even then, I think what we are doing, what's great about it is that, you know, people call us black metal. We've called ourselves black metal, although I don't think we're limited to that at all, because ultimately, I think there's one thing that's very, very, very clear and obvious to me when we do what we do, and it's the inherent presence of love in what we are doing and towards what we are doing and for what we are doing. And I think that's the thing that's behind all of it, you know, that drives us to do what we do. And then the rewards are not something that you can see on a number that shows up on a screen. You can't measure the amount of love that we have for what we do and what we get and what we evoke in other people who are also involved with it. And I think that those reasons are, you know, kind of like, I'm very content with us even being the only people on earth who may understand those reasons, you know, but guess what? We ain't ever gonna fucking stop. So, you know,
you're stuck with us now.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so, and the thing is as well, you know, it's kind of, this is it, you know, it's that pursuit, you know, people are witnessing a pursuit of something much greater, you know, and we might have a story to tell when it comes to the situation in the Middle East and what like Soli and I have been through, or, you know, what you've been through in Birmingham and everything like that, you know, that we talked about earlier. But it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. That's just an easier way to try and explain to people where we come from. But I think where we are going is perhaps even more relevant, you know, which is that this is a spiritual pursuit of something far greater than any of us, and also far greater than any of us could have ever imagined so far.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, like you touched on with the, you know, that whole side of, because like you said, you know, somebody could very easily turn around and say, well, why are you doing music? You know, you'll never earn any money and this and that, and it'll be a very difficult existence and etc. But I think for us, and I think for you know, many people that follow this path, it's never been a case of let's go and make, you know, millions of pounds writing songs and whatever. It's the case of, this is who we are. And you know, you can't just change that by you know, we've worked on other things, you know, you've worked on businesses and done this and that more in the materialistic commercial side of things, which you can, you know, you need to do obviously to be able to earn a living.
And it can be fun. It can be fun. It feels good when you do something and you make money from it. I actually love that feeling, you know, and I'm not, you know, you know, my sort of more political orientations, you know, I'm not against that kind of thing at all. And I think neither of us are, but it's just maybe drawing the line in the sand, saying that TRIVAX is done for different reasons, you know?
Yeah, and I think the part of it as well is we can do all of those things, you know, which we've done, and it's good. You feel good afterwards, but ultimately the satisfaction is never the same.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
It never matches what we experience by doing TRIVAX, and which I think we've said many times over the years, that there's never been an experience that can compare to doing TRIVAX and doing the shows, making the music, and everything that comes with that. And that's one of the reasons why we're still doing it, still pushing it, and will continue to do so, is the fact that nothing else compares to doing that. You know, in one respect, you could even argue just by being in another band, in a different project.
Yeah, which I have done, and it's just not even the same thing, you know. Like I can say that for a fact. You know, I've been in multiple projects and bands, and nothing even ever comes close to TRIVAX, because I think of the very obvious fact that TRIVAX is a spiritual process of evolution and evolving and metamorphosis and transformation and everything that comes with it. You and I, we've had this conversation so many times over the years, but like I'm sure I've said this to you before, and it's you know, we come to the mutual point of understanding where it's like I almost feel pity for people who never got to experience this, you know?
Yeah.
Like I feel pity for the millionaire guy who works his ass off year round and then has to go on holiday with a girlfriend who he probably hates, you know, and the meanwhile, you know, he's still got Tinder installed on his phone, you know, and he's still doing this and that, you know, and it's like, you know, you might have a lot of money, but you know, you have no meaning in your life. And we got pinnacle levels of meaning just from being a little bit resilient and just from following what we do in TRIVAX, you know, and you know, and that's our journey. And by the way, I'm not saying this to take away from anyone else. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not saying, oh, we're better than everyone. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is, I feel sorry. What I'm really getting at is I feel sorry for people who never get to who never got to experience this level of meaning in their lives. Okay, and that meaning can very much usually meaning is something that's heavily laced with a word called suffering, you know, which I've learned to embrace over the years, very much so. But and it's kind of like once you embrace it, then the good shit actually happens, you know. So it's kind of like you embrace the Scorpio, then the Taurus starts to happen, then you can kind of chill out, or not chill out, but it, you know, have the more luxurious things come your way. But yeah, to kind of conclude that, I think that it's the epitome of meaning, you know, as far as I've experienced it. I'm sure parenthood is maybe like that to an extent. I'm sure having other projects, you know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not knocking other people. I just, you know, I just, we have a lot more in common with people who've experienced true meaning in their lives. And that meaning doesn't always necessarily mean financial or materialistic successes, because those things are very temporary, you know, whereas that meaning is something that you etch into reality and you leave it in, you carve it with a fucking fat dagger into time and space. That's what we're doing.
I think the way you could look at that is the fact, like for me, I consider us to be fortunate in the fact that we have found where we need to go, because it's very easy I think particularly in the world and society that we live in now, where, you know, especially with the advancements in technology, where you kind of live in a world now where it's presented to you as everything is possible, regardless of your ambition, what you want to do. It's possible, which ultimately can create a paralysis in people where they're then unable to choose a path or know where they need to go, because it's like, well, I could do this or I could do that or this, but then, and it's like, okay, let's try and do this. It's like, no, that's not right. They'll do this. No, that's not right. And then you end up going through cycles there where you kind of try things but don't really get into it. And then before you know it, 20, 30 years have passed and you're like, holy shit, what am I going to do now? And
fuck, that's so true, man. That what you're saying is so true right now. And I think it's a terrifying truth that probably applies to, I would say, a scary number of people the scary percentage of people, because I would say that's probably most people in today's world.
Yeah.
You know, and the antidote to that is also sometimes you just got to choose a path, and then all you got to do is just fucking stick to it. Okay. Maybe you'll change your mind down the line years later, or maybe you'll think I'll do something else, but you got to be able to stick to it, and you got to be able to commit, and you got to, once again, be able to level with the suffering that might come with pursuing a path, but then realize that that's all a part of it. You know, it's all adding to your life force in a way, you know, and there's also the saying as well, which I love, is that comparison is the thief of joy. You know, like to some extent, maybe it's a good thing to compare yourself against your own peers and competitors from the perspective that, oh, what are they doing that we could be doing? What are they doing that's really hurting them? So we should avoid doing that. I'm not saying to like stop learning from people, but sometimes when it comes to comparison, people look at other people and other things and immediately throw away everything that they have. You know, this exists very much in today's like relationship culture, you know, where someone could be in a relationship with someone that they're very happy with, but then as soon as like a sexy Instagram avatar pops up somewhere, you know, with a totally unrealistic portrayal of that person's life, then the person sees that and think, "Ooh, I wonder what that's like," and immediately within that thought process abandons everything that they already have right besides them. I think that's a very dangerous thing in today's world.
Yeah, it is. And you know, one of the things that kind of, I would say, helped me, but I think allowed me to sort of understand where I'm going a bit more, is this saying that it doesn't matter which path you choose, it's going to be hard in terms of whether that's doing something like what we're doing, where we're trying to pursue the band and music, or whether that's pursuing what you might call an easier life, you know, in terms of you go to work, you come home, you raise a family, you go to the pub and have beers, because in, you know, most of the time in the back of your head, you'll be thinking, oh, well, what if I did this? What if I pursued my dream or what I want to do? But you're not doing that. So it doesn't matter what you do, it's going to be hard. So choose the hard that works for you, that works in your favor to get you where you want to be going, rather than focusing on things which, you know, are still important, but don't necessarily take you down the path that you want to be going. Because it doesn't matter which path you choose, it's going to be hard regardless. And, you know, one of the things that helped with that, which you don't think about when you start doing it at all, is just the simple act of going to the gym and lifting weights. Because by doing so, if you want to achieve any kind of result in doing that, you have to be consistent. You have to go regularly. You have to eat well and follow a good diet and so many things. And by doing that, then when you start seeing the results, it allows you to develop a better sense of discipline within yourself, which you then inherently apply to other aspects of your life without even realizing that you're doing it. You know, for me, it can be a case of like just practicing the drums, for example, and making sure there's a consistent routine there to work on that and improve, and make sure that, because like you said before about continuous improvement, for me, it's a case of going on to, you know, behind the kit pretty much every day and sitting down and finding a point of failure, which is what you also do in the gym, because the only way you can progress and move forwards is by finding the failure, because that's where you learn the most. You know, success is obviously great. That's what we all want to go and achieve, but it doesn't teach you as much as when you go and do something and fail miserably. And I think by looking for that and putting yourself closer towards failure and accepting failure as an everyday thing would actually allow you to progress and become stronger in a much better way than it would to kind of shy away from it and not look for it and think, oh no, it's too hard, I can't do that. Compared to, okay, well, I fucked that up, so how can I do it next time? What do I need to do to be able to do it and move further towards that goal?
Absolutely, man. That's beautifully put. Very well said. And one thing I can add to that as well, just as like a small little thing, is, it's also extremely important who you surround yourself with in that process as well.
Yeah.
As you and I have learned this throughout the years, and without going too much into the detail of that, but I think that's a very important thing. And you know what? For me personally, like, I'm just as a person, I might have done all the stuff that I've done, whether it's with TRIVAX, whether it's with the podcast, whether it's with fitness, with coaching, business, and relationship, all that stuff. A lot of that, it's my own determination and ambition, but a lot of that is also the help and support that I've had from people around me, yourself included, So because of having friends like you and Sully and having everyone else involved, I could never claim to be a self-made man, That's not a fair statement at all, but I'm actually kind of proud of that because, I feel like I've surrounded myself with the right people here. Matt, this has been good, man.
yeah, it's been really good.
This absolutely, like, the last 2 hours just fucking flew by, man. Holy shit. Yeah, people came in for the black metal and instead got the best life lessons they could have ever had.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to hear about this new album. Now I need to go and question everything.
It's good to question everything. I think TRIVAX is good at invoking that in people, that's for sure. Also, I want to say a quick shout out to Rob, Tracy, and maybe even Kath if they're listening, so hello.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
we certainly wouldn't be where we are without them by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. And that web kind of spirals. And actually, I could say the same about everyone who's listened to us. We wouldn't be able to do what we're doing without the people who are supporting the shows, coming to the gigs, and also the people who are like taking a risk on us, putting their own finances on the line for us to go and play in their place. The fact that they're captivated enough that they're hoping that TRIVAX bring values to their event, which we most certainly do our utmost best to do, and I think in most cases we absolutely pull it off. But I think the fact that they're willing to take that risk and give us that opportunity is extremely valuable for us, because like I said earlier, it's an opportunity for that spiritual evolution at the end of the day. So I can say on the record here, we're in great debt to everyone who's ever supported us in any way, shape, or form, and continues to do so.
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't be able to have done any of what we've done without the support of all the people that have shown interest and supported the band over the years. So I think we're forever indebted to them. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're indebted to ourselves as well for not giving up, because we could have done that loads of times, but we didn't. Yeah,
we certainly did.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, this was really fucking fun, man. Maybe let's do another one later and we can talk more about aliens. How does that sound?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
It'll be even longer. It'll be like 4 hours once we go down that path.
That's it. Yeah. We'll have to dissect the lyrics to Atash. I think that'll be a good starting point for it. Yeah. There we go. Amazing stuff, man. Appreciate the fuck out of you, and thanks for being my drummer for over 13 years. That's pretty cool. Yeah,
it's not bad, is it?
No. It's pretty cool. Nice one. Okay, so we'll wrap this up. Anyone listening to this, go support. Well, it's us, so it's the same dialogue. I don't know if it works as well, but if you like the conversation, obviously go check out The Great Satan. Come and see us at shows. Come and say hi. We don't bite. You can come and extend this conversation with us as well, and finally you all got to hear from Matt for the first time publicly as well, so there's that to add to this whole thing, so indeed, don't underestimate the quiet guy, because then this is what you get.
It's always
nice
the case,
one, Matt.
isn't it?
There we go. That's it. All right. And,
I think even the mic is telling you to finish.
I know, the mic's like, fucking hell, Ian, what's this you mad con? But, right. Nice one, guys. Hope you enjoy this one. Support TRIVAX if you will, and we'll see you on the next episode of Iblis Manifestations. Bye-bye.